Duskmourn is a distant memory, suffocated beneath 730 cards and a screenshot from Akira. Nobody's even thinking about it anymore, except for me because I foolishly said I'd review the flavour of all of the cards. And in the previous videos in this series, I did a good chunk of those, before kind of falling into a depressive spiral for a while. I was going to release what's left in one big wad of video, but instead I'm splitting that up and this is one of those parts. So, before the whiplash of Hanna-Barbera and Akira references whizzing past our ears makes us all forget every single detail of Duskmourn, and maybe even why we liked magic in the first place, let's finish up our time with the horror plane, sit next to its bed, and hold its hand whilst it slowly fades away. Over to you, the past. It's finally time to take a look at the House of Duskmourn itself, the ever-shifting rooms and halls of the demonic mansion. Represented in the set both by the lands, and a new enchantment subtype, room. Across the set and the commander decks there are 28 rooms, each comprised of 2 doors, which essentially work as an enchantment in of themselves. You cast one half from your hand, and then the other half remains locked on the field until you pay its cost later. When designing rooms, WotC actually initially created something closer to how contraptions or attractions work from the unsets, wherein you would lay out permanents on the field and their ordering was important. And this was initially intended to attempt to recreate the idea of moving through the various rooms of the house. But ultimately, having an extra deck attached to your deck, which is how those kind of cards work, is something they want to reserve exclusively for unsets, it seems, at least for now. Every rule about Magic seems to be being broken every other minute, so who knows, maybe that'll be in the next set. But in the meantime, rooms have been simplified into essentially just an enchantment version of the double spells we've seen a few times in various sets. And I actually think the wording of unlocking doors was very well done for allowing the cards both to work as spells you cast from your hand or activated from the field after the fact. Now, the House of Duskmourn itself is divided up into 5 zones, sort of biomes, if you will, although there's very little bio about Duskmourn. The house is ever-changing and shifting, but its architecture warps along the lines of the colour pie in 5 distinctive sections, one for each colour. And so as to serve as a sort of tour, a journey through the halls of Duskmourn, I'll divide this video up into sections that cover those 5 zones. So let's begin with the Mistmoors. Empty foyers that ring with eerie silence. Corridors lined with uncanny marble statues and draped with white fabric that ripples in unfelt breezes. The Mistmoors is the white-aligned zone of the house, and the stillness and peace that we might find on the majority of Plains cards has here been transformed into unsettling and eerie stillness within the house. Marco Gorlay's Plains was the image chosen to accompany the guide, and it does an excellent job capturing that unnerving quality that the guide describes. Despite the giant neon moth shape bleeding through the back of the room, the balance between the muted colours of the interior and the blue of the background is brilliantly achieved. The other of the regular planes in the set is painted by Josu Hannes, responsible for loads of great art this set, and this is another of those, the great ones. And here we have a meadow populated by furniture and windows, and instead of a sun, we have light dawning from beneath 2 curtains. I actually really like how the lighting of this piece is very hopeful and bright, happy, almost contrasting against the eerie surrealness of the misplaced furniture. This room is lulling me into a false sense of security. In Dan Mumford's graphically illustrated planes, as for each of the lands in this style, we can see an impression of Valgavoth in the background, tearing at the edges of the room. Dan Mumford did the full art planes for this set, as well as the rest of the full art land cycle. And each of them depict a version of Valgavoth in the background of the scene, demonstrating his mastery over the domain. All expertly illustrated in Dan Mumford's gorgeously graphic style. I also really like that these depict Valgavoth in lots of different forms, as Valgavoth is supposed to be constantly shedding his old body in favour of a new one. And when the survivors are silhouetted like this, you can't see how obnoxious they look, so that's great. They all convey a powerful sense of mood and are really nicely composed in terms of lighting for how each image directs your eye. My particular favourite is the swamp, with the grand staircase being chewed away by Valgavoth Dwarf's Claws. Excellent set of lands. I'm probably going to have to pre-order the Nightmare Bundle just to get me hands on some of them. Am I too late in doing that? I'm too late in everything. So let's move on from these to discuss the white rooms of Duskmourn's Mistmoors, which I am going to assume, being white rooms, are in the Mistmoor. Very few of these I have managed to find in large resolution, so I'm using Scryfall. That's all I can do. Dazzling Theatre, 3 and a white. Creature spells you cast have Convoke, which is your creatures can help cast those spells. Each creature you tap while casting a creature spell pays for 1 or 1 mana of that creature's colour. I always forget that Convoke can pay for coloured mana as well. Oh well. Prop Room, 2 and a white. Untap each creature you control during each other player's untap step. I imagine with the nature of these being rooms, the flavour is going to be a little bit harder to discern than with the creatures, etc. But let's try it anyway. What about a theatre gives your creatures Convoke? Let's think. Because they are joining the performance in some way. Creatures beget more creatures. The theatre draws in people. Or a performance needs members. I'm not quite sure with that. Prop Room. Your creatures can untap during each other player's untap step, as they are just so prepared from all of the crap lying around in the prop room. Excellent. Excellent mood for a abandoned theatre. And the theatre half of this does a great job selling the line between decrepit and grandiose. Perfect that these two cards should be separated by a curtain. That's ideal. And I like the eeriness of these props, this sort of dress in the foreground that's straight jacketing itself. And the signature cloth swaddled boxes and nondescript pillars and things that you see throughout the Mistmoors. Great stuff. They're a little bit cheesy, but I do like the screaming faces you can pick out hidden throughout the image as well. Dazzling Theatre has its own alternate art, just a full art version. I don't know specifically what this is, but it's cool. It seems like some backstage glitch ghosts are creating an illusory cellar spawn on the stage, perhaps using the name of that ghost photography technique that I can't remember the name of. But I love the colours in this image. Very lovely, clean lines create a real nice sense of the space and scale of the building that reads really well even at card size. Dollmaker's Shop is 1 and a white and states whenever one or more non-token creatures you control attack a player, create a 1/1 white toy artifact creature token. Porcelain Gallery costs 4 and 2 white. Creatures you control have base power and toughness, each equal to the number of creatures you control. The Dollmaker's Shop makes you toy tokens, which makes sense, and we have the toy token, and it's great. Brian Valaza's art actually executes the low angle incredibly well, so this tiny toy looms over us with its eerily human eyes and smudged grin. I really like Chris Cold's art for Dollmaker's Shop. Oh, thankfully there's a kind of low res, but slightly larger version of it on mtgpigs.com. Nice. Draped in cobwebs, which probably speaks more to Valgvoss effect on some parts of the house more than its lack of use, this doll shop. I like the flavour with the Dollmaker's Shop that the toys are created when non-toys attack, as almost as if they're sort of following your other creatures in a way, to read eerily into it. And the Porcelain Gallery, I suppose it's just the idea of those creatures backing up your other creatures to produce more power? I'm not quite sure. Either way, I like the flavour of these creepily specific corners of the house. Dollmaker's Shop also had its own full art promo by Cacho Rubion, who I think we looked at one card before, potentially. They have a few in this set. A more stylized, comic book-esque graphic look to this image, like lots of Rubion's images for this set. I feel like it just about works at card size. Well, the Porcelain Gallery half particularly starts to sort of bleed into itself in the background. I know that's kind of the intention, but at card size it's just a little too small to read, I feel, and the lines themselves. It's just too thin at card size, basically. But I do like the washed out version of Duskmourn's colour palette. Grand Entryway and Elegant Rotunda. Grand Entryway is 1 and a white. When you unlock this door, create a 1/1 white Glimmer enchantment creature token. Elegant Rotunda is 2 and a white. When you unlock this door, put a +1 counter on each of up to 2 target creatures. There's a glimmer in the entryway, and it's there in the art, even if it's being cut off by the room reminder text, basically, but you can just about see it. I suppose maybe that should have been planned for a little tiny bit better, and like move the glimmer up, but otherwise, I very much like that entryway artwork. Let's see if we can find a larger version of the art, and we can work out how those +1 counters are flavorfully justified. Let's see. I'm not quite sure on the flavour of the +1 counters, as much as I like the mood of both of these images. And I do like how the rooms tend to connect to each other. Not always, it's not a fat rule, which I enjoy as well, but we can see the Glimmer's trail arcing across the floor in the elegant rotunda and into the grand entryway. It's lovely. If only he'd been slightly higher up on the stairs, he wouldn't be cut off. But the lighting across this image is actually beautifully done. Again, a host of excellent lighting techniques all around. Who is this artist? Carlos Palma Cruchaga. Lovely. Just an excellent little slice of the Mistmoors, really. Oh, I like how those ominous upside-down shadows in the floor are actually in the entryway as well, just less obvious due to the dim lighting. This is actually a really lovely scene. All round. Even if the flavour isn't super exact with the elegant rotunda, but we'll forgive it for being a common anyway. Secret Arcade and Dusty Parlour. Secret Arcade is 4 and a white. Non-land permanents you control and permanent spells you control are enchantments in addition to their other types. Dusty Parlour, 2 and a white. Whenever you cast an enchantment spell, put a number of +1 counters equal to that spell's mana value on up to 1 target creature. Is it Enchanted Evening? I can't remember the name of the other enchantment that makes all your stuff enchantments, or is that the one that makes them into creatures? Enchanted Eve. All permanents are enchantments in addition to their other types. Yeah, this is similar, I suppose. Although this sort of does the spells thing, like Mycosynth Lattice as well. Let's see if MTG Picks can provide a larger image for me. I will confirm form resubmission, thank you. I do very much like the dust-filled air being illuminated in the arcade image. I'd love to see this arcade in more detail. It does look really coolly designed. I like it. Are there skeleton hands playing air hockey? That's cool. I like the skeleton air hockey table, although it would be really annoying to actually play air hockey on that table, though, because your wrists would constantly get caught on the spine. I kind of like the presentation, not as much as, again, I'm still not a fan of the being arcades. I can live with it. But I like the bony arcade, definitely adds more fun to it in a Duskmourn-y way. But I'm not quite sure what the flavour is of the arcade, making all your stuff enchantments. It's gamifying your permanence in some way. They're all creepily becoming the subject of games in the arcade, which causes them to be magical enchantments. I don't know. Or it's just a place where glimmers congregate and affect your other permanents or are represented as your other permanents. I'm not sure. The Dusty Parlour looks quite cozy compared to lots of places in Duskmourn, actually. Just don't sit in the moth chair. You're supposed to avoid moth symbols according to the story, physically. Don't touch them. So don't avoid that chair. You'll probably be alright otherwise. It looks alright. Big gaping window through which anything could emerge, and I suppose by the logic of Celestborn they can emerge anywhere. You never really save a Duskmourn, are you? But it does look, maybe all the rolled up bits of paper, who knows, maybe this is a safe zone. It's definitely allowing you to sort of prepare in some way, buffing up a creature whenever you cast an enchantment spell. Surgical Suite and Hospital Room. Surgical Suite is 1 and a white. When you unlock this door, return target creature card with mana value 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. A Hospital Room, whenever you attack, put a +1 counter on target attacking creature. I love the eerie surgical theatre with these cloth-covered statues, maybe? These terrifying surgical light arms reaching down through the beam from the ceiling. And we have a particularly grandiose hospital bed in the room across. Surgical Suite, I think returning a creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield can feel like them surviving surgery. That could work. A Hospital Room, whenever you attack, put a +1 counter on target attacking creature. I don't know, of the, just again, this being the benefits of a potential safe zone, somewhere nice to rest, and you are therefore stronger on attack. Titus Lunter is responsible for lots of fantastic magic land art over the years. And that's basically what the art for rooms is like, right? Did we run out of white rooms? I think we might have run out of white rooms. Yeah, okay. Let's move on to blue, I believe. The Floodpits, frozen subterranean lakes, screen-lined corridors that breathe a cold, obscuring fog, twisting staircases that you can walk onto but never off of, libraries where waterfalls pour into waist-high lakes of sodden pages, damp, musty bedrooms mottled with unsettling water stains. The blue-aligned zone of Duskmourn, with some of the most surreal and impossible architecture in the house. In Raymond Banilla's art that accompanies the guide, from our low angle in this room that feels as if we're underwater, but that feeling actually comes from the ceiling, which appears to, the light reflecting from the ceiling, where the water is suspended above us, casting light like we're on the ceiling of a cave. And you can see this water in impossible locations motif in lots of Floodpits displaying cards. Leonardo Barazio's island gives us a slightly more whimsical scene, though no less surreal. It's an octopus tea party as this tentacle pours us a cup of tea in the ankle-high water that's pouring into this room, as the curtains splay like the flippers of a manta and fish swim in the air.
or water in the background. Actually, it does appear like there is some sort of screen or something protecting us from the mass of water behind, from which these streams are falling through grates. Lovely mood for a land. Darkly whimsical. So then, let's look at Bottomless Pool and Locker Room. Bottomless Pool is 1 blue. When you unlock this door, return up to 1 target creature to its owner's hand. Locker Room is 4 and a blue. Whenever 1 or more creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, draw a card. I like both halves of Diana Franco's image here, although this does feel more like some sort of underground stream than a bottomless pool. If you asked me to guess the name of that image, I don't think I would have guessed bottomless pool. Maybe, like a higher angle focusing on the bottomlessness of it would have delivered that message, but not that it's bad anyway. It's a cool image of a sewer-esque location in Duskmourn. Maybe it's bottomless if we could rotate the camera and see. Even though it feels like quite a lethal thing, it's quite common for blue effects to show creatures being drowned or sucked into water as returning to your hand, so even though that seems like it would murder them quite dead, drowning in the bottomless pool is only going to knock your creature out for a little bit, so don't worry. Locker Room, we can see, is allowing access to some weapons and the like if you pull those doors open, it seems. So some previous survivors or the house or whatever is storing you some shiny electric-y stuff. I suppose that's the flavour of the Locker Room drawing you cards. That feels more like a +1 counter type thing, really, from the art, doesn't it? Or something to that effect. But I suppose you're raiding... No, I think it'd be your opponent's locker room or whatever, really, wouldn't it? I'm not sure. You're raiding your opponent's locker room, but it's the one that you've played? Anyway. Central Elevator and Promising Stairs. Central Elevator is 3 and a blue. When you unlock this door, search your library for a room card that doesn't have the same name as a room you control. Reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle. At the beginning of your upkeep, surveil 1. You win the game if there are 8 or more different names among unlocked doors of rooms you control. I like the idea of the Central Elevator being a room tutor. That feels pretty apt. Taking you exactly to the room you want to go to. And you've got to go somewhere else as well, basically. That's quite fun. And the promising stairs ascending up, specifically here, leading you to victory, it seems. Although surveilling, I feel like, feels like a downward thing. If you know what I mean. Surveilling feels like downwardly spiraling things into the graveyard. Not too difficult of an effect. I suppose it's kind of like casting 8 spells in a way, or 9 maybe. Well, I suppose 8. I love Christy Belanescu's art here as well, which I know we have a large version of because it was my background for a while. Gotta be there somewhere. Yeah, there we go. Lovely. Oh, it's such a good image. At card size, it can almost look like 2 images stitched together, but you can very much see how it is a single room with the carpet, with the edge of the carpet following into tiles, all drenched, with pools of water flowing over all of it. And everywhere in the room, a sodden, drenched, dripping hallway. Very Rapture from Bioshock. It's a little bit hammy, but I like how lots of the water, particularly in the elevator itself, the streams form ghoulish faces. The reflections of the light and the pools of water as well. It's a stunning mood. It's so moody. Meat Locker and Drowned Diner. Meat Locker is 2 and a blue. When you unlock this door, tap up to 1 target creature and put 2 stun counters on it. Drowned Diner, 3 and 2 blue. When you unlock this door, draw 3 cards, then discard a card. A Meat Locker stunning a creature feels pretty apt. They're freezing in the Meat Locker, they're not going to do very good at attacking, are they? A Drowned Diner, making you draw 3 cards and discard a card? Perhaps the cards drawn represents the boon of discovering whatever was in the diner, but the discarding a card is the cost that this Kraken-esque creature is going to take from you. I'm not really sure if Star Wars is the kind of thing they would attempt to reference in Duskmourn, but it does remind me of that scene in the trash compactor thing, especially due to the claustrophobic walls. I really like how this one feels like 2 completely or nearly independent scenes happening side by side, cut off by a mere few inches of wall. I love how lots of these room cards give you the idea about Duskmourn. Oh, it's got such lovely horror movie-esque lighting for each scene as well. Entirely differently lit. Perfect amount of light hamminess just to bring reality up to 11. Mirror Room and Fractured Realm. Mirror Room is 2 and a blue. When you unlock this door, create a token that's a copy of target creature you control, except its reflection in addition to its other creature types. Fractured Realm is 5 and 2 blue. If a triggered ability of a permanent you control triggers, that ability triggers an additional time. Another of the room images that's sort of more intended to be taken as a single piece and works as such. And I love the colours of this image, even if I'm not a fan of the Survivor's design. And the grim fates the mirror represents are all nicely painted. I like how gross they are. It's cool. And the sort of Dutch angle on this creepy hallway, all accented in turquoise. It is a lovely image, again, as much as I'm not a huge fan of the Survivor, it's still pleasing to look at, or at least the houses. Yeah, that looks really nice with that gold mirror as well, doesn't it? There are some really nice covered colours in this image. A mirror making a reflection token. Could you get any more flavory? Maybe that's implying that this Survivor themselves is the reflection token, as there's nothing else represented in this image, is there? The real Survivor is trapped amongst these many reflections. And then doubling up an effect also feels pretty mirror-y, doesn't it? So, yeah, I feel like it's quite easy to achieve copy flavor when you talk about mirrors, etc. That's been done before, and it's done again here. Also, copying... This card is expensive, obviously, but the ability to copy all the triggered abilities is very powerful. I had a game recently where I played this in Cockatrice, and paired it with Smothering Tithe, and the Tithe really should have blown up a lot quicker, and dear God, the amount of mana it made me. Underwater Tunnel and Slimy Aquarium. Underwater Tunnel is 1 blue. When you unlock this door, Surveil 2, which is like Scry, but you could put the cards into your graveyard if you want instead of the bottom of the library. Slimy Aquarium 3 and a blue. When you unlock this door, Manifest Dread, then put a +1 counter on that creature. Even more Rapture feeling, as we have a glass underwater tunnel that's leaking. Another lovely Titus Lunter image that we can't see any larger. Yeah, I think just zoom in on the page. I'll have to do. Yes. Oh, I see, yes, the edge of the tunnel is meeting the foreground in the middle, so that we are entirely underwater, I believe, in the aquarium half of the image. I love the indistinctness of the water in the background of the aquarium. Perhaps even tentacles can be seen. And the delightful furniture floating just off the seabed, almost. Just such a beautiful scene, really. Surveilling 2 for 2 on a thing that lets you then later make a creature is not bad. The creature half is pretty overcosted, but it's a common again, so surveilling 2, I suppose, feels like delving down deeper into the tunnel. And your dread, whatever misty form you can see across over in the aquarium, is your dread manifested. It's time to talk about the Balemurk, the black-aligned zone of Duskmourn. Lightless foyers of rotting floorboards knit together by unpleasantly dripping spiderwebs. Bogs riddled with gravestones and punctuated by withered, grasping trees. Basements sunk in ominous gloom, whose shadowy corners seem to move when glimpsed from the corner of your eye. Swamp-style rooms is what you get in the Balemurk. Martin Diego Sabada's art that accompanies the guide is one of my favourites of the Basic Lands arts in the set. I do like it, actually. I like all the Basic Land art for the set. And this piece is absolutely unique. I do appreciate that about it. It just feels a little busy. It feels like every part of this image is conveying some different form of danger. It's a bit overwhelming. Although it does contain moods that I like. It just contains too many of them, But I do very much like the sense of scale of the place and these bizarre insect leg / beam supported rooms rising above a flooded hallway. It's an interesting feeling for a piece. It almost feels it's like overcooked. The horror's been cooking in the horror oven for too long. The other swamp art by Nestor Osandan Leal gives us this sort of descending web of staircases enveloped by web themselves and trees as they descend down into the ominous blue mists beneath. I like this mood a lot. It reminds me of the astral clock tower from Bloodborne, and that's fun. I feel this definitely captures the mood of a swamp through the twisting, surreal staircase motif that Duskmourn likes to use, and is cool. If I'm honest though, both the swamps, I kind of wanted the swamps to be a bit grimmer, in my opinion. I think sort of upping the decrepit nature of rooms to evoke the idea of a swamp. I think dampness would have been the main theme I would have gone for the black rooms of Duskmourn. But it's fine, and to each their own. I think maybe more disgusting. Damp rooms, decrepit and falling away. Floorboards descending into swampy murk. I think that's the kind of mood I would have preferred for the swamps. Not that they aren't good in their own right anyway. So let's look at the black rooms, starting with Cramped Vents and Access Maze. Cramped Vents is 3 and a black. When you unlock this door, this room deals 6 damage to target creature and opponent controls. You gain life equal to the excess damage dealt this way. Access Maze is 5 and 2 black. Once during each of your turns, you may cast a spell from your hand by paying life equal to its mana value rather than paying its mana cost. How is that Cramped Vent dealing 6 damage to a creature and opponent controls? And then vampiring the life back to you? No, I'm not quite sure. The flavor's a bit rough here. I suppose Cramped Vents look particularly jagged and sharp and potentially covered in viscera. So I suppose the idea is you're leading your opponent's creature through these cramped vents, an area that you have an aptitude for and they don't, I guess? I don't really know how that gains you life unless you're like vampiring their corpse. Maybe. I suppose it's excess damage, isn't it? So yeah, maybe that's the case. Access Maze gives us a bird's eye view of a maze. And despite being a single piece, these two images are separated by perspective, so they don't seem like adjacent rooms, like in lots of the other arts. This is a nice sort of god's eye view of Duskmourn, almost putting us in the shoes of Valgavoth. And we feel like we're playing Dungeon Keeper or something. And I guess that makes sense, as this enchantment allows you to cast spells by paying life, much like how Valgavoth does. I sort of representing the magic of Valgavoth in a way and aligning you with his perspective. Let's go on to the next one. Funeral Room and Awakening Hall. Funeral Room is 2 and a black. Whenever a creature you control dies, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. Awakening Hall is 6 and 2 black. When you unlock this door, return all creature cards from your graveyard to the battlefield. I like this card a lot. It's just a good card. It's a Zulaport Cutthroat, or the other enchantment one, I can't remember what it's called now, Bastion of Remembrance on one side, and then it's not quite Rise of the Dark Realms on the other side. Rise of My Dark Realms on the Awakening Hall. I feel like looking at this image, I'm getting the music from that funeral hall near the beginning of Bioshock in my head. Creepy organ music. I'm not sure that any blood artist effect has ever been entirely flavorful. It's always a little bit vague for most of them, really. And to be honest, I think, as much as the damage isn't super clear where that's coming from, but a funeral room allowing you to properly prepare for the deaths of your creatures does speak to some idea of you gaining benefit from dying. And you can see that a properly embalmed body here will rise again. All of them will, when you unlock the expensive Awakening Hall.
And also in the Awakening Hall are
spindrels, which you can actually see on a few cards, wafting around these awakening bodies at the table. These sort of meteoric, hovering cloud things. And these are supposed to be the result of a survivor being caught by a cellar spawn, which overwhelms them with pure terror and sort of strips them down to these psychic remnants, which is just sort of a being of pure psychic terror. Nothing remains except the psychic echo of terror that these things embody. So I'm not quite sure what they're doing here, whether they are causing the awakening or not, but I like that the body is shushing us. Perhaps the spindrels are just screaming around him in fear, and that's where the shushing is coming from. Funeral Room and Awakening Halls alternate by Alexandre Chaldre is particularly gorgeous, actually. Definitely among my preferred of the alternates. I love the red-blue quality of the static, which looks very nice, balanced against the muted colours of the rest of the room. The white flowers emerging from black does a great job at creating space between both these rooms. And I just absolutely love the silhouette of this rising figure and how it's repeated in the background. Oh, it's just a beautiful card. Perhaps I do want this version of this card. They're both very nice. Derelict Attic and Widow's Walk. Derelict Attic is 2 and a black. When you unlock this door, you draw 2 cards and you lose 2 life. Widow's Walk, 3 and a black. Whenever a creature you control attacks alone, it gets +1/+0 and gains Death Touch until end of turn. I very much like the perspective that we're given in Mark Simonetti's scene here, inside and outside of this house within the house. The cobwebs catching the light within the attic do a great job at adding depth to that scene. I feel like the dotted, shadowy figures are a little hokey, but it's the kind of thing that is still readable at card size. And I actually love the misty quality of the light surrounding the house on the outside. Just a lovely scene, really, in a landscape perspective that we don't commonly get to see in Magic quite like this. It's nice. I suppose that the secrets of the attic are being represented by these 2 cards that you're losing, and there are dangers there. Thus, the 2 life lost. I like the idea of the Widow's Walk providing your lone widowed creature an effective and deadly advance on your opponents. That's quite good. Polluted Cistern and Dim Oubliette. Polluted Cistern is 1 and a black. Whenever 1 or more cards are put into your graveyard from your library, each opponent loses 1 life for each card type among those cards. Dim Oubliette is 4 and a black. When you unlock this door, mill 3 cards, then return a creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. Did Arthur 1 also do the art for They Came from the Pipes? Let's see. Oh, no, I don't think he did. Okay, interesting. He did do the Clue arts, though. I like all of those a lot. If only Ravnica Clue Edition wasn't so expensive and kind of rubbish, because I do actually like a lot of how the cards in that set look. Anyway, back to the actual topic. I suppose with the Polluted Cistern, the flavour is that you are draining your cards away into the sewer.
and damaging your opponents on the way. And the more diverse of a diet of cards you've eaten, the more damage you'll deal to your opponents. The dim oubliette, with its hands reaching from above, I think works quite well for the idea of 3 of your cards being chucked into the oubliette, and the tastiest of which is then being returned by the hands through the ceiling. These same hands appear to be like the ones that appear on the card They Came from the Pipes, in which we could see a bunch of hands reaching out from a bathtub. I'm not sure if these are supposed to be the same hands, but they definitely remind me of those hands. And I very much like both these scenes. I mean, the Polluted Cistern and Dim Oubliette. Giving a very castle-esque impression of this section of Duskmourn, but I like it. Defiled Crypt and Cadaver Lab. Defiled Crypt is 3 and a black. Whenever 1 or more cards leave your graveyard, create a 2/2 black horror enchantment creature token. This ability triggers only once each turn. Cadaver Lab is 1 black. When you unlock this door, return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. The horror tokens are cellar spawn, so perhaps the defilement of this crypt is maybe representing Valgavoth Cellspawn doing the body recovery, if you know what I mean? Doing the resurrecting? Potentially? I'm not sure. I suppose this Cadaver Lab is resurrecting whichever is the least damaged of your cadavers. I really love both of these pieces, though. Oh, we've got to see if we can find this big. Let's have a quick look to see if we can find that big. Show me a Cadaver Lab. Show me Cadaver Lab, please. Oh. The mix between the green and the orange lighting is beautiful and gives it such a classic, uneasy tone, punctuated by that blood red. I like the sort of distinction between the 2 rooms being the bones of the crypt and the blood of the Cadaver Lab in those jars. And just the lighting is so brilliantly done throughout. Unholy Annex and Ritual Chamber. Unholy Annex is 2 and a black. At the beginning of your end step, draw a card. If you control a demon, each opponent loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. Otherwise, you lose 2 life. Ritual Chamber is 3 and 2 black. Whenever you unlock this door, create a 6/6 black demon creature token with flying. I suppose both of these rooms represent an area of Duskmourn in which you are communing with, it seems, the other demons of the house. The demon survivors, if you will, of Valgavoth's demon culling in the past. Some sort of font where unholy knowledge is gained and vitality as well in the presence of a demon. And this summoning circle for the Ritual Chamber where they are summoned. I think this is the only card that makes it. I very much like the art for Josu Solano's demon token, one of the twisted, broken demons that we see, with these horribly translucent, almost insect-like bat wings. There is such a grim quality to their translucency. It's fantastic. I love how it looks sort of desperate and gaunt and withered, but no less dangerous, no less deserving of that 6/6 stat line. And again, I like the eerie green coming through the background, highlighting the image in a way that I don't find as repulsive as it does in lots of other images, and also implying the existence of survivors just behind that panel. It's a very cool card. Yeah, nowadays a 5 mana will get you a 6/6 black flying demon, and also the option to play Phyrexian Arena after the fact. Oh, what a time to be alive. Let's look at the alternate art for this card. Alexis Zirit. Oh, they did the art for the Zundersplit and Okaun, however you pronounce that, from that Secret Lair from a few years ago. I do very much like the unique style, which is very much a Secret Lair sort of style, but it does a good job of capturing the TV static effect. And I think being drawn against black here does a good job for letting what is essentially quite a busy image, but it still reads quite legibly at card size, I think due to being drawn against black, essentially. It's very nice, it allows all these lovely colours to pop. I guess we'll move on to red. The Boilerbilges. The red zone of Duskmourn. I refuse to use Control F. There we go. Furnace rooms full of suffocating heat. Stairways that end in abrupt drops into vents of sulphurous fire. Hallways whose walls are slashed with rips glowing a vivid, infected red. Scorched, blackened, fire-ravaged junk rooms. The red zone. It's fiery. It's treacherous and dangerous and volatile, like a volcano or a mountain in Magic the Gathering context, I suppose, sometimes. The art by Nesta Asandon-Leal that accompanies the guide gives us a very volatile-looking corridor. Harkens back to the harshest of Rakdos's own environments. I'm very much not sure you can even survive this ascent through the flaming skull mouth. By all means, attempt it.
It is a very cool piece. I like this image a lot. It does feel almost too dangerous to be like an environment. It's like a threat, if you know what I mean. Maybe it's some of this fire is illusory and we will be able to pass through the mouth. Only lightly singed, but you can go first. Yeah, as much as I do like this image, it doesn't give me much of an impression of the rest of the Boilerbilges or what they're supposed to look like almost. It feels like they're like an abstract hell realm, nearly. Which doesn't quite seem to be the case from lots of the other cards, including the other art for the basic land. There it is. Lovely. Okay. Ralph Horsley's other basic is the kind of art of the Boilerbilges that I feel is more common and you see on lots of the red cards, like the Razorkin, etc. And shows us a volatile-looking boiler in the middle of this labyrinth of pipes with various valves sticking off of them. And I like this second feel for the Boilerbilges a lot more than the first one. I don't have an issue with the first one. It's obviously great that there should be variety amongst the red lands, but this kind of zone is much creepier to me and complements a lot of the art it's in. Blip, blip, blip. Blub, blub, blub. Let's look at the red rooms, shall we? Which don't really actually fall along. Well, actually, no, a few of them do, but lots of these don't actually fall along the aesthetics of the Boilerbilges basics at all. That's fine. Who cares? Let's look at them anyway. Duskmourn's a surreal place, right? It can be surreal and break its own rules, I suppose. That's fine. It's a whole world. Red can manifest in many different ways. I'm trying to justify the fact that I like a lot of these rooms, even if they don't necessarily fit the established aesthetic for the Boilerbilges. Anyway, on to Painter's Studio and Defaced Gallery. Painter's Studio is 2 and a red. When you unlock this door, exile the top 2 cards of your library. You may play them until the end of your next turn. Defaced Gallery is 1 and a red. Whenever you attack, attacking creatures you control get +1/+0 until end of turn. I love the idea of art and a painter, artistic expression and inspiration being the flavor for red style impulsive draw. I think works really well, representing almost this like flash of inspiration, this idea that you can cast from the top of your library, but only for a brief period while it's fresh and exciting. I'm not quite sure on the flavor of the Defaced Gallery. Your creatures were patrons of the arts, and now that your gallery has been defaced, they will fight ever greater in revenge to avenge the art. Yes, that's the flavor that I have decided on and refuse to accept anything else. I love this piece by Mark Simonetti. We saw it before the set came out, and I've loved the mood ever since I've seen it. I love all these like specifically natured rooms, giving us this impression of the vastness and variety of Duskmourn. This corner of the house where this painter has sequestered themselves away. We don't know anything about them other than what we can glean through their work, and the idea that somebody seeks to destroy that work, whether it's them or someone else. But I feel I'm looking into this life lived amongst the walls as I see these images. Let's find the larger version. There we go, lovely. My guess, ultimately, is that we're looking at the gallery of perhaps a Razorkin. Someone at least obsessed with fear. Perhaps the fear of their victims, but who can say? I just love the perspective warping in this image as well. The lighting is fantastic, the perspective warping is beautiful, especially in the defaced gallery leading off into that ominous, uncertain light at the end. It's a fantastic image. Charred Foyer and Warped Space. Charred Foyer is 3 and a red. At the beginning of your upkeep, exile the top card of your library. You may play it this turn. Warped Space is 4 and red. Once each turn, you may pay 0 rather than pay the mana cost for a spell you cast from exile. I feel like I've seen a large image of this, but maybe I'm wrong. Let's find out. Go on, MTG Picks. Hey, beautiful. Very much a single image as the 2 rooms intersect for a gaping hole. I actually like the balance between the 2 rooms is very nice. As wrecked and destroyed as the Charred Foyer is, it does represent a kind of stillness and normality when paired next to the warped staircase. I'm not quite sure how the foyer is giving you that impulsive draw. Yes, I'm not quite sure about that. Outside of just scavenging and looting the room, etc. Perhaps the impulsive draw is representing the resources gathered from the Charred Foyer? I'm not sure. Warped Space giving you the option to easily cast something from exile almost feels like the space is warping to allow for whatever madness you have planning, essentially. The uncertainty of the space used to your benefit, in a way. Let's look at the alternate art and then move on. Oliver Barrett. Only the 1 card, but he illustrated this card, which gives us 2 different perspectives. Looking down on a warped staircase and across at the Charred Foyer. The black lines against red does look very nice here. Lovely staticky warping. I like the glitch ghost emerging from this door. It is a beautiful card. Glassworks and Shattered Yard. Glassworks is 2 and a red when you unlock this door. This room deals 4 damage to target creature and opponent controls. Shattered Yard. At the beginning of your end step, this room deals 1 damage to each opponent. I suppose your opponent's creature is being hit by some still hot glass? It's being blown at them or something? And the Shattered Yard is a very spiky place to traverse and will stab your opponents for 1 damage on each end step. It appears this arcane glass is falling from above, maybe, or being suspended by the magic of the magical glass blower. I do like the sort of secretive quality of the light in the room, though, and it appears to all just be emanating from the fire in the center. Gives all the glass surrounding it this kind of secretive quality, which I very much like. Scryfall is not doing a great job at allowing me to see the art for Shattered Yard. It feels like, especially with this statue dividing the 2 images, herself potentially slightly shattered, I'm not sure. But it feels like the dividing line between the favoured creations and those that have been discarded. It had no other art. Ticket Booth and Tunnel of Hate. Ticket Booth is 2 and a red. When you unlock this door, manifest dread. Tunnel of Hate is 4 and 2 red. Whenever you attack, target attacking creature gains double strike until end of turn. I suppose the dread here represents the person running the ticket booth, ominously obscured by the translucent glass. I'm not sure. Your ticket will get you some dread. The Tunnel of Hate is inspiring your creatures onwards into ever greater feats of murder, I suppose, through their hatred. I think I'm a fan of almost all of the room art, really. Especially as it gives us an opportunity to see these perspectives to images that you just don't often get to in Magic cards. Let's have a quick old look and see if we can find it large. It's easy to talk about art that I can see, and I cannot see it. I'm a little confused. This might be the fact that I can't look at the art up large. I'm a little confused as to what is in the foreground of the Tunnel of Hate image of these fingers. Something's part of a heart, organs? I'm not quite sure. The Tunnel of Hate I find vague. I don't dislike it. I like the vagueness of it, and if this vagueness conveys anything, I can believe that it could be hate. Well, I think the Tunnel of Hate is a bit on the nose. If you just called this Tunnel of Love, I think that would have been fine. We can see the heart-shaped edge of the tunnel almost. But still not a bad card for Flavour, and still painting a lovely picture of another corner of Duskmourn. Spiked Corridor and Torture Pit. Spiked Corridor is 3 and a red. When you unlock this door, create 3 1/1 red devil creature tokens with when this creature dies, it deals 1 damage to any target. Torture Pit is 3 and a red. If a source you control would deal non-combat damage to an opponent, it deals that much damage plus 2 instead. I'm a little confused by the flavour of the devils and the Spiked Corridor. Torture Pit, increasing your non-combat damage makes... I can buy that, that's fine. We're torturing our opponents for more. The Spiked Corridor, shouldn't it be like devilish den or something? I don't know. It's just, I guess the devils live in the Spiked Corridor. It just makes me think of like this as a video game level. And this card definitely feels very video gamey, or at least the Spiked Corridor half does. But it just makes me feel like I've gone into the Spiked Corridor. But alas, there are also demons there. This dungeon is harder than I thought. It definitely looks very imposing. I guess one criticism I would have had of maybe of lots of the enchantment rooms is they've commissioned the art to fit this scale, and then the room reminder text and type line just takes up quite a lot of the image, and they've made it transparent-ish to accommodate this, but I feel like it could have just been smaller still. Or at least parts of the image that you could feel would make them work more, give us an easier grasp of their perspective, covered by the type line, essentially. Yeah, but I still very much like the black silhouetted nature of all the objects in this image, piercing the red background. And now onto green. The green section of Duskmourn, the Hauntwoods. Hallways choked with thorny vines and brambles. Overgrown greenhouses full of specimens both venomous and carnivorous. Isolated cabins in the middle of dense, lightless woods. Crumbling domes strung with wicker hexes and strangled by trees shaped like human hands. The inside meets the outside the most in the Hauntwoods, as the forest overgrows the structure of the house. Some sections of the Hauntwoods appear as overgrown rooms, as if left unchecked with nature invading. Others appear like forests, with elements of the house creeping in the same way. One of those, by Josu Hanase, is one of my favourite land arts in the set. His basic land, which is the piece that accompanies the guide, gives us such a stunning and unique, beautifully surreal mood as trees grow out of doors and chairs and chandeliers hang from the canopy. It's a little cluttered, you could maybe say, and the same sort of feeling and maybe a bit more eeriness could be achieved with less stuff, but I think this way it allows the image to work better at card size as well. Our other basic land art by Martin D. Diego Sadaba gives us a low angle of a greenhouse looking forest as we look up at this grand metal frame with vines hanging down from cages and thorny eye flowers grow out of the grass right next to us. I like how the uncanny eye flower is highlighted with some eerie movie set lighting from behind, for which there is only 4 rooms. Let's start with greenhouse and rickety gazebo. Greenhouse, 2 and a green. Lands you control have tap, add 1 mana of any color. Rickety gazebo, 3 and a green. When you unlock this door, mill 4 cards, then return up to 2 permanent cards from among them to your hand. I can see how the cultivation of plants in the greenhouse would lead to your lands being more verdant and producing more types of colors. I suppose the rickety gazebo has been preserving memories within it for some period of time, and now they're available to you upon its opening. I can't find a large art of this lovely piece by John D. Giovanni, but I do very much like it a lot. I can see some of those strange googly eye plants growing in the greenhouse. Wow, this is actually cropped much nicer on Scryfall than the rest of them usually are. I don't know why this one looks so much better. The blue mist does a great job making the image eerie, whilst also complementing the green of the plants. Perhaps this was once part of the road true. Experimental Lab and Staff Room. Experimental Lab is 3 and a green. When you unlock this door, manifest dread. Then put 2+1 counters and a trample counter on that creature. Staff Room, 2 and a green. When a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, turn that creature face up or put a +1 counter on it. Perhaps this entire place is run by the cult, as I assume those cocoons in the staff room are metamorphosizing people in the same way that the cult does, but perhaps they're just metamorphosizing something else gross as well. It's a very moth-themed room with those chairs, but again, lots of things are in Duskmourn. That doesn't necessarily mean it's cult-owned. But you can create an experimentally powerful Celisborn or something in the experimental lab, bigger than your average and trampling over others. Is the staff room rewarding your creatures for working for you by dealing combat damage? I guess. The staff room is the payoff for your creatures doing their jobs. Again, it is just lovely to see a scene that we don't classically see on Magic cards, getting to see this abandoned space that's still full of implied movement and life. And I love how the backs of both the rooms dissolve into mist and shadow. Walk-in closet and forgotten cellar. Walk-in closet is 2 and a green. You may play lands from your graveyard. Forgotten cellar is 3 and 2 green. When you unlock this door, you may cast spells from your graveyard this turn. And if a card would be put into your graveyard from anywhere this turn, exile it instead. The high contrast style of Miklos Ligeti does an excellent job helping this card remain legible at card size. I really like their style and the sort of well-defined shapes without verging into the abstract, really. It's really nice. And just beautiful colours. Minimal colours used incredibly effectively, giving this incredibly simple image a ton of appeal. Yeah, I love how the blue fades into green across the two. It's lush. The walk-in closet is overgrown, I suppose, so that's why you can play lands from your graveyard. And the Forgotten Cellar, again, I suppose it's representing you finding all the things you left down in the cellar, or were left down in the cellar for you to reuse again. There is an alternate art for this card, I believe. Here the image is split red to green down the middle, though the card is all green. And this walk-in closet is less overgrown, and I suppose lends less to the idea of it referring to lands. As much as I do like the image and this crouched figure, I can't make out super well at card size, but they're definitely doing something with some clothes on the floor of the closet. The Forgotten Cellar is sort of difficult to make out with the glitch warping effect. I do like that image a lot, and the skull in the foreground. You can see how there are like barrels, etc., of the implied wall. And I do like how that mimics the clothes in the walk-in closet, but it's not quite as legible as the other image. Mouldering Gym and Weight Room. Mouldering Gym, 2 and a green. When you unlock this door, search your library for a basic land card, put it onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle. Weight Room is 5 and a green. When you unlock this door, manifest dread, then put 3+1 counters on that creature. We saw this art before the set released, and I have loved it ever since. One of my favourite images. Alright, let's see this up large. Oh, lush. It's another one that's full of minor, hokey details, but they don't feel quite as hokey as in the other ones, and there's some kind of variety amongst them, like the tentacles in the foreground, the eyes growing out of the tree, the spider, web, basketball, and this face growing out of the wall, almost appearing like a clock. I'm not entirely sure. The trail of blood leading from the toothed door in the background. What an excellent scene, what an excellent use of space and lighting. I love the illumination along the edge of the tree and the weight room we can see pouring in from that open door. Oh, and the shadowy figure hiding against the back wall. Absolutely beautiful image. I implore you to stare at it on a monitor for an extended period and find all the hidden things within. Maybe my favourite image for marrying the forest with the house together. In terms of how it works mechanically, it's overgrown, so finding your basic land kind of makes sense. And the weight room is allowing your manifested dread to beef itself up with 3 +1 counters. So it's an effective weight room, even if it looks like it's kind of seen better days. With art that good, who cares anyway? So that's all of the mono-coloured rooms and sections of Duskmourn.
And we'll save the parts of the house where its zones intersect for next time. In a video that's already nearly done, I'll cover the jewel lands and the jewel-coloured rooms, as well as the returning characters and the stories that feature them. See you much sooner than last time for that. Now, get out. Unless you want to follow me on the social media accounts on the screen right now, or even become a patron, like all my lovely brass squires and Parcelmere. Rather than having to die to get their names on a park bench, all they had to do was give me money. What a steal! And what a bunch of bloody heroes. Just like this next group of Mere, whomst I will try and name aloud before the ball that makes them up rolls over and incorporates me. Quick, we've got
Sebastian Rees, Storfitting, Marshall Mere, Eric Vaughan, Librarian of Leng, Steve-O, Santiago Ardea, Chonga, the Banished Mole King, Patrick Dane, Mimeo, Bob, and Darkflame.
Thank you so much, everyone. I'm being rolled over and incorporated. Oh, luckily, from my place in the ball, I can still hit the random card button on Scryfall. So, is today's bonus card? Oh, Scathe Zombies. Definitely one of the first cards I owned, although not this edition. I think it was... Maybe it was that edition. I think it was that edition, actually. That's the one I had first.